Hello, this is Alys, and here we are, kind of analyzing the trailer for The Bachelor Route. Pathologic 3 actually. Because yes, we've gotten a trailer, a Steam page, and an approximation of a date, mid 2025. And let's be honest, it would be kinda cool if it were in June just to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the OG Pathologic. But maybe that's too much speculating from my part. Let's be honest, there's like 1,000 things that could happen. Only that it would be good if it were in June. Now, on to the actual speculation, aka the trailer analysis. So, without further ado, Alys analyzes the Pathologic 3 trailer. Day? In which we wonder what this is actually all about. So, we actually start with what I thought was at first a camera, but it's actually a projector. In fact, from the information I have found, apparently the first slide projectors are from the 1920s, so it kinda tracks with the not exactly canon but supposed time in which the games do happen, which would be more or less mid-1910s to late 1920s. And oh boy, Horman Danko's being interrogated! By an inquisitor by the looks of it. Going on a limb here, I'm going to say that it is either Karminski or a completely new character because he looks too young to be Orf. Though I have seen some theories popping up on Twitter that apparently this could be another mentioned inquisitor called Feeling.
There are 44 counts in the indictment.
Admit that this number has me a teeny bit obsessed. I tried to link it at first with the 12 days that we are supposed to be in the town, but alas, I've always been very terrible at math. As it was pointed out to me by a friend, 4 is a number that tends to be associated with death, especially in East Asian societies, as its pronunciation in quite a bit of language sounds quite close to the word for death. I found similar stuff for 14 and 24, but nothing precisely for 44.
Here is what happened as a result of your actions.
We get to our first slide. At first, I thought that the one hanging in there was a tragedian, but after much comparisons, I must say it. It's not a tragedian. It's our boy, Kaspar Kain. Here's what happens as a result of your actions, the Inquisitor says, which definitely underlines the fact that this is happening post-game. But, after this slide, we move to another scene that should be kind of familiar. There are kids playing much like in the vein of how we could find them in the prologue of Pathologic 2. And above them, it's actually Notkin, the one who's hanged. But when we return to the interrogation room, it's Khan again. Which makes me wonder if this is one of the fixed outcomes of Danko's decisions. Whatever he does, that's one of the leaders of the children that has to shuffle off his mortal coil. AKA, here you cannot actually save everyone, and that will happen in greater numbers than in Pathologic 2. Or if you do save everyone, there's going to be a greater cost than there was in Pathologic 2. What if the Inquisitor's role here is actually one akin to Mark's in Pathologic 2? aka he will be the one to dole out the punishments and the like, because this interrogation room looks like it's going to provide the same narrative framework the theater did in Pathologic 2. And oh boy, here we go with more meaty matters. The reply being, in a garbled typography, yes, but this will occur yesterday. Quoting Aspik Lodge's studio head, Nikolai Dibowski, from an interview in IPL's own teletype from July 2022, there are precisely a number of philosophical questions that we want to focus on while working on the plot of The Bachelor. It's about time and being lost in it, as well as managing time itself or changing its perception. So yes, the time mechanic is going to be paramount in an even greater way than what it was in previous versions of the game. Not only does time affect you, but you do affect time. And we all know that this mechanic, while seemingly granting you power, will only hurt you. It's pathologic after all. In the meanwhile, the slide of a hanged Kaspar Kain changes for another that should feel quite familiar if you have played any of the games recently, watched any Let's Play, or maybe even just watched the Pathologic 2 trailer. That's right, a sandpest-infected person approaching you. Something which, contrary to what I remember, actually happens twice in the Pathologic 2 launch trailer. Once inside, which by the distance between you and the infected character was the one that I actually managed to recall, and another outside at a greater distance. Then we are brought to yet another familiar situation. the town in the ending days, with probably the worst outcomes having taken place. After all, it looks a lot like the beginning of Pathologic 2 and kinda like the ending of the Marble Nest, to the point that it was somehow expecting the tune of Theodore Bastard's Darkness to accompany the images. And we see it there, the theater. But there has been something going on in the meanwhile. Some images which we only get to see in instants, annotated by Dankowski himself, perhaps. Thanks to Cyber Bamboozle on Twitter, we do have the annotations and a translation into English. The first is Child Found Hanged, Town. The second, the Town Theater, turned into a hospital. The third, Examples of infected townsfolk. And the fourth, Blood isn't dangerous. And thus, we enter the place, and we are greeted by an executor looking at a dove model crying over Murky. Which makes me wonder if this is a timeline in which Artemy actually fails to find Murky's friend and thus he cannot save her from the Sandpest, or if we are still in what I imagine to be the Day 12 prologue. And this is very interesting, because we're getting to see the effects of the Sandpest on a body at a very early stage. This was also one of the very first promo images we actually got from the devs on another blog post in Teletype, December 31st last year. There, they insisted that the hospital would increase in its importance, which definitely makes sense, as Danko, at the very least how I see him, should not be having the same approach to things as Artemy. Another view of the projector. And this has already happened tomorrow. And man, this scene always breaks me. I get the point of it because it literally shows the levels of panic, hysteria the people of the town are operating on. And to be frank, it actually makes sense to have it both in the Bachelor and the Harusbeck stories because of the reactions they have, at least based from what we know of Classic HD and Pathologic 2. Yes, they're similar, but they also stem from very different POVs. Dankowski's reaction, at the very least from my reading, is one from an outsider, more of a holy shit, these people are uncivilized, plus the horror any normal person would have at this. Whereas Artemy's reaction, at the very least, the reading I have of it, is the reaction of someone for whom the stakes are actually higher in that very point. More like, these are my people you're burning. And I also get that part of the point is that this scene should break you, and it does it purpose with me. Now back to the trailer. We see several slides of the town in rapid succession and cut to another sentence. No, that's not how it went at all. There's two options. The first one is that all is said or thought by Dankowski himself, or that this written part is also part of the dialogue between Dankowski and the Inquisitor, which would be kind of funny seeing it as a sort of reference to the style of Pathologic games till now, with a spoken quote by the character you're speaking to and then following with just text. We see Dankowski holding a strange sort of instrument that, by the looks of it, could be used to measure time, maybe. I don't know, but it does seem like the love child between a sextant and an astrolabe, and while those were more instruments of measurement of position, the astrolabe itself could also be used to measure the time of the day. So, by the appearance of it and the placement with the quote, I believe that this might be the instrument we might need to use to get back on time, and maybe, just maybe, undo the mistakes we made. We see several slides of the town in rapid succession, once again, and back to the projector. And this time, the Inquisitor speaks again.
Is that so? Show me how it really was then.
We see the title, and I scream, you scream, everyone screams for Pathologic 3! But also, before we get to the excitement, there's one last thing I would like to point out. Who is the Inquisitor referring to? The Bachelor? The player? Both? Knowing IPL, I can only say yes. And this is it so far. More speculation and rambling than proper analysis, but I am extremely excited to see what IPL will bring us with Pathologic 3 sometime in mid-2025. Again, as usual, if you found this video and had no idea of my other stuff, hello again, this is Alys, and I am currently going through every possible iteration of Pathologic available to the public, among many other stuff. If you can and haven't already, please subscribe. And if you like this enough to spur some cash my way, there's a link to my coffee in the description below. Next video we'll see our return to the Let's Plays with Day 5 of the Classic HD Bachelor route. Until then, see you!